Hey everybody, welcome back to the DeLuz Brothers, where we talk about all sorts of cool stuff, faith, family, politics, sports, you name it. We'd like to bring a little bit of a different twist to it. We like to keep the fight in the family. I'm Craig DeLuz.
And I'm David DeLuz.
And, welcome to the program. How you doing so far, bro?
Man, Craig, I'm doing really well. This has been a great week, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I'm really excited and ready to get to it.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what we're going to talk about today. So after our last show, we had an interesting one of our commenters, one of the folks who viewed the program, had some real questions about, well, let's just say she had some questions about our president. She was like, well, I just don't understand how someone could support our president. And everyone has these words. They were like, well, how could you be a Christian and support Donald Trump? And then you have people who say, how can you be a Christian and not support Donald Trump? You have people who say, how could you be black and support Donald Trump? And people who say, how could you be black and not support Donald Trump? So I think what we wanted to do today was just kind of talk a little bit and flesh out some of the arguments, both for and against Donald Trump, and just really kind of talk a little bit about, what folks are saying and just kind of help people to understand why someone might support or might oppose Donald Trump despite, well, what you think.
Craig, this is an interesting topic. Donald Trump is just, I don't even know how to describe it. So I'm one of those people that is not at all feeling Donald Trump. I understand that we have a decent, the Dow Jones. I know the Dow Jones is doing really well, but other than that, I'm really concerned about the direction of our country. And so I'm really glad we're having this conversation because we really have to get to the bottom of what is it really that people feel about their president and what do they want to feel about their president. I think that's another important point.
All right, so let's just lay a few ground rules. Number one, not every argument that is going to be espoused is necessarily one that we would make. Right. Exactly. So some of them are just simply helping people understand why people believe what they believe. And I'll just give you an example, and I'll lay it out there so that, full disclosure. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Now, I didn't vote for Donald Trump for different reasons than probably my brother didn't vote for Donald Trump. My concern was that when Donald Trump was running for president, 18 months before that, he was a New York liberal who was pro-abortion, who was anti-gun, and who was talking about raising taxes. So I was concerned when he was running for president that some of the views that I agreed with, by the way, that he was espousing, he wasn't going to govern according to those values. Now, I'm happy to say to a degree that I am pleasantly surprised. When I say pleasantly surprised, not so much that he's done everything that I've wanted or that every policy that he's done I agree with, but he's a lot better than I thought he would be.
Right. My problem is the logical inconsistency of voters like yourself who say that they are values voters.
Right.
But you have a president who is married 3 times, has had serial affairs, is known to have questionable business practices, including racial discrimination, faulty financial controls. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy is a walking, I don't even know what you want to call it. Right, he's a problem.
Here's the problem. And I'll give you this as an example. Someone asked me one time when this was during the election. They said, "Well, Craig, I'm having concerns because they're like, I don't know what to do." Right? I mean, I have 2 candidates. I'm not really in love with either one. So what do I do? And I said, well, here's the thing. If you have a choice between a D-, and then once again, this was during the campaign, but if you have a choice between a D- and an F, right? And this is, once again, we're talking during the campaign. If you have a choice between a D- and an F, would you or would you not pick the D-? Because that's what we had a choice of between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. We had one person who, at the very least, espoused the values that I believe in. He said things and said that he was going to do things that I agreed with. On the other hand, we had a candidate who was espousing everything that I was against, who was making it a point to say, I'm going to do everything you don't want me to do. So it was either a flip of a coin with someone who may govern according to the values that he's espousing, or it was go with somebody who I knew was going to do things that I believe were going to harm the country and harm me personally.
Do you believe that Trump has done nothing to harm the country?
I believe that most of his policies have been good. Most of his policies, I mean, you have to look at it. Unemployment is at an all-time low. The economy and economic confidence is at an all-time high. Wars that President Obama was determined for some reason to lose, we've almost wiped out, for example, ISIS. These are things that Donald Trump has done since he's come in office that are clear successes. That, well, the mainstream media, well, you would know that these things have actually happened because the mainstream media won't report on them. But these are things that, once again, I agree with. Now, there are things that he's done that I disagree with. I'm not a fan of tariffs. I believe tariffs are taxes. And if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, and you believe that, and you don't believe in taxes, well, then you should have an issue with that. I also happen to believe that this president hasn't kept his word when it comes to the Second Amendment. I mean, he's banned more stuff than President Obama did. He banned bump stocks. He violated separation of powers to ban bump stocks. Now, you may not care about bump stocks. I don't own a bump stock. But my problem is that if we allow this president to violate separation of powers to ban something that we don't care about, what's to keep him or the next president, Kamala Harris, as Kamala Harris has already stated she would do, from banning something that we do care about?
What about Beto? He said, I'm coming for your AR-15 and your AK-47.
Well, it wasn't just Beto didn't just say that. Right. So did Joe Biden. Yeah. So I'm stuck with someone who is.
I can understand your concern, Craig, about having a candidate on the opposite side of the aisle that is literally the foundation of their campaign is antithetical or it's against what you believe. I totally get that. But you can't be a values voter and support someone who doesn't love people, doesn't care about the average American, because his policies have done nothing but support the top 1%.
Not true.
He did a tax cut that hasn't, quite frankly, measured out to helping the middle class like he said it would. Secondly, he has destroyed our standing in the world as a world power and as a key ally across Europe and across Asia. We are now literally an isolationist country because we've alienated all of our potential allies. A lot of our long-standing allies literally can't stand to be in the same room with Trump or any of his representatives that he's put in place to represent the United States.
Let's understand something. Number one, things that he's done, for example, let's say to the UN, right, and to NATO. Look, hey, y'all, we're tired of footing the entire bill.
That's not all he said. That's not all he said. That's not all he said. No.
He has
questioned. He has said America's not going to be there for you.
No, what he said.
That's crazy. Those are the words that came out of his mouth.
To do stupid stuff. You can't expect us to foot the bill for all the stupid decisions that the people in Europe are making. I mean, sorry, let me clarify. That the elected officials in Europe are making.
Stupid decisions.
For example, you can see clearly from the vote of Brexit and how things have been going with that. You can see that clearly right now, people are not happy with what's going on in the European Union. That the decisions that have been made, whether it's by Marsha May or Angela Merkel? Angela Merkel. Can't even say her name right. But you can tell that the decisions that they are making are negatively impacting them, impacting Europe. And what he's saying is, we're not going to make those same mistakes, and we're not going to pay for your mistakes. What he's saying to Americans is, look at the issues that they're dealing with right now in Europe, and that's because of their socialist positions, their Largely because of their open borders and socialist positions.
But Craig,
and that's
that was
why
the whole point.
The problems they're dealing with.
But that's the whole point of the European Union, is to reduce the barriers to trade and travel so that you can actually grow the economy in each respective nation. That's the whole point of the EU.
But what's happened is then all of a sudden
not.
the lax, for example, the lax foreign policies or immigration policies or the poor economic policies of a country where you have no representation now directly impacts you. And what President Trump is saying is, look, it's not that we're going to be isolationist. It's we're not going to let you in Europe, you in Mexico, you in Canada govern what we do and what's best for us here in America.
But you've effectively taken America off the world stage by you can say that we don't want to foot the bill, but what you can't do is communicate to our longstanding allies that we are not going to be supportive. And literally, my challenge with the way, it's not necessarily what Trump has done, but it's the way that he went about doing it. Because literally, he had our own allies questioning whether or not we were going to be there for them. And I just think that by removing, you want to talk about American exceptionalism. America is exceptional simply because we are willing to sacrifice and we are willing to be there for our neighbors and our allies. What Trump has done, his rhetoric is literally creating a black hole of world leadership. And Craig, the Republicans were questioning because Obama had the nerve to bow at the Queen, which is what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. You went ape over the fact that this man bowed to the Queen. This guy, Trump, is disrespecting the Queen. He's disrespecting all the other world. He's shoving the prime minister of one European country, shoved him out of the way at the G7 meetings. Literally shoved him out of the way by demonstrating a lack of respect for your allies and your friends. You have abdicated the space on the world stage.
David, let's be clear. All right. First of all, I appreciate your effort to filibuster.
I'm not filibustering.
That's exactly what you were doing. But anyway, understand that tact is not Donald Trump's thing. I'll just be real. I have often said that what I have had to do during his presidency is I can't listen to what he says, because what he says and what he does, I have to look at what he does. Because when I look at the policies that he implements, I agree with him. When I look at some of the things that he says, things like, take the guns first, due process later, that bothers me. That severely bothers me. But then I look at the policies that he's doing and that he's implementing. And so those are the things that I tend to focus on. And what I will say is this, what I've recognized on the world stage is this, is what he said to the world stage is, look, you guys, you have to have our backs as much as we've had yours. And if you don't, then we're going to take care of us first.
That's not
just
what he's saying.
Just like they take care of them first.
That's not what he's saying.
Just like they take care of them first.
That's not what he's saying. And that's not what he's doing.
We are responsible for the defense of almost the entire free world. And all we're asking them is, pay your fair share. Do your part. Stop making dumb decisions that are putting you in situations that are putting you and your people at risk. Because guess what? All you have to do is look at a lot of the protests that are going on right now in Europe, and I think that in and of itself will inform you that that even the people, there are a lot of people there, right there in Europe, who disagree. People amongst our allies. But then you also have a Democratic Party that wants to take a number of our allies, and they want to disrespect them in favor of our enemies.
Who?
Israel is a great example. I'm sorry, you have an entire Democratic Party that is so anti-Israel.
That is not true. That is not true. The Democratic Party is not anti-Israel. What they are concerned about, what the Democratic Party is concerned about, is the human rights abuses that are going on along the border between Palestine and Israel. At the end of the day, we expect our neighbors and our allies to be righteous and upstanding partners. And when you have some of the human rights abuses that are going on along the border between Palestine and Israel, that's a problem. All we want is for them to move towards peace. And right now, Israel is not moving towards peace. They are moving in an aggressive manner against the Palestinian state. That's a problem.
David, come on, man. You don't get to continue filibustering.
I'm not filibustering. I'm telling you the truth.
First of all, what is happening is, number one, you're talking about human rights abuses that are not human rights abuses. You're talking about individuals who are literally, as a nation, defending themselves as bombs are being lobbed into their country. All they're doing is simply defending themselves. And if someone is not allowed, if a nation is not allowed to defend themselves.
Why are they attacking Israel?
Why are they attacking Israel?
Why are they attacking Israel?
Because they don't want Israel to exist. They don't believe in the fundamental opportunity. They don't believe that Israel should ever exist. If they could, and this is the interesting thing about this is that one of the things that Israel has asked for, and the main thing that they've asked for, is simply, if we're going to talk about a Palestinian state, they say, well, you know what? We want you, first and foremost, have to acknowledge and have to recognize the right of Israel to exist, and that is a non-starter in those cases. But bro,
that is not true.
That is true. But right now we're getting into talking specific. I mean, our whole point is now is we're talking about Donald Trump. Why people support and why people don't. Now,
so I want to get back.
What are the arguments that people have? Okay, go ahead.
Let's get back to America.
Okay.
You say that you like the decision Donald Trump has made?
Yes.
You like his policies?
Yes.
You like his decisions?
Most of them, yes.
Okay. We have record homeless. And yes, while the unemployment rate
where's most of that homeless located?
While the unemployment rate,
tell me where most of the homelessness is located.
Within Trump's America. Within Trump's America.
California.
No. That's not even remotely true.
We have the largest homeless population in the nation,
but not the only homeless population. This is a national.
We have the highest poverty rate.
Craig, this is a national problem. This is a national problem, and do you know why we have the highest poverty rate? Do you know why we have the highest poverty rate?
Because of democratic policies.
No, because we have the highest wages.
Because we offer the most.
Because we have the highest wages and the highest household income. We have high income, and you have people who are losing jobs
in the state of California.
That is correct.
Or anywhere else.
That is correct.
Who runs California?
Craig,
does Trump run California?
Trump does not set wages. So. Trump himself does not set wages. Craig, the American worker productivity has shot through the roof since 1980, but wages literally have remained stagnant, have remained flat. Not during the Trump administration, because you've gone through literally
faster than ever before. Faster than almost ever before we've seen wages
increasing
in the state of California. I'm sorry, no, you're right. More than in over a decade.
That is true.
Wages increase
that is true
faster.
because of the upward pressure.
That includes during the Obama administration.
That I'll give you that, but that's because of the upward pressure that you're having from workers. You have a tight labor market. And so you're going to have this upward pressure on wages.
And that's the point.
You're right.
But that's the point we talk about.
But corporations,
policies, deregulation, lower taxation.
That is not true. Trump has done nothing. Trump has done nothing.
Increased consumer confidence.
Trump has done He hasn't increased consumer confidence. He hasn't increased consumer confidence.
Give the man his due. If Bill Clinton got credit for the tech boom, then
what Trump has done,
Trump should get credit.
What Trump has done has signaled what I wouldn't necessarily call this a boom, but what Trump has done is he has signaled to corporate leaders that it is okay to invest. The problem is that what corporations are doing with their billions that they're collecting is that they're doing stock buybacks and they're retrenching their position in their corporations. They may be hiring more people, but they're not hiring them at significantly higher wages. That's why you have more people. More people than ever before are homeless. And that has nothing to do with local policies.
That has everything to do
with
local
doesn't. That has
policies.
everything to do
David,
with
no,
overall prices in the economy.
When in the state of California, in order to build a unit of single-family housing, it costs you $80,000 before you break out. We're talking in environmental regulation, in taxation, and fees in the state of California. $80,000 before you even put the shovel in the ground.
Craig, that has nothing to do.
That's all Democratic policies.
Craig, that has nothing to do.
That is all Democratic policies.
Craig, that's one state. That has nothing to do.
Problem in Arizona.
That has.
Kind of funny they're not having that problem in Nevada.
Yes, they are. They're having that problem in Nevada. They're having that problem in Arizona. They're having this problem in Texas. They're having this problem in Ohio. They're having this problem in Michigan. They're having this problem in Florida.
Nowhere near to the
that is not
in California.
There are more homeless now in all those states that I just named. There are more homeless now than ever before in all those states that I named, which are controlled by Republicans.
Nevada's controlled by Republicans?
I don't want...
Nevada's controlled by Republicans?
I said, okay, maybe not all of them. Florida is. Georgia is.
Yes, they are.
Mississippi is.
I don't subscribe.
Louisiana is.
So later what you're going to have to do, because I don't subscribe
I will post those numbers.
Include in the comments, make sure you include a link showing that those...
Done.
I'll do that. By the way, are comparable to what's going on in the state.
But
of
at the end of the day, Craig, while unemployment is down, you have people who are having to work longer hours, more hours, just to keep up with inflation and the price growth that is happening right now. So Trump has done nothing to boost wages. Trump has done nothing. Trump has done nothing to battle homelessness.
That is just not true. Wages are up.
Trump is also saddling your future generations with debt.
That I agree with. That's something. That's a
problem.
But here's the funny part is he's still not spending at the clip that Democrats are proposing now. Look at all the stuff. The $650 billion is what Elizabeth Warren is proposing the taxpayers pay on student loans.
Not all taxpayers.
You're looking at
not all taxpayers.
You're looking at
the top 1/10 of 1%.
Medi-Cal for all. She wants to take away everybody's health. They want to take away everybody's health care.
That's not true.
They want to take away everybody's health care.
That's not true.
They want to increase taxes. What is it? Something like
they want to give everybody health care. They want to give everybody health care. But if you want, if you want a premium plan, if you want a premium,
all you got to do is look at the post office and look at how well the post office does. All right, and determine whether or not you want the same people who run the post office to be running your healthcare, or the Department of Motor Vehicles.
What's wrong with the post office? The post office.
They have a monopoly on being able to deliver mail to your mailbox, and they can't make a profit. What do I have wrong? What do I have against the mail? The post office.
I would suggest that you look.
Oh my God.
I would suggest that you look at the post office budget. The post office is not. You do realize that there is no federal budget line item for the U.S. Postal Service, correct? Did you know that?
They cannot even earn a profit. They cannot. They're not even earning a profit. They're not earning. They're losing money. Right and left.
Okay,
and
folks,
we know they don't. They don't pay their employees that much.
I'm going to post a resource that will help you all understand what's really going on at the post office, because I believe it is still one of the best examples of American commerce that you'll find. It may not be making a profit. It's one of the best examples of
government-run commerce, which is kind of an oxymoron.
Okay,
all right, but David, let's move on. There's one item that I believe we have to touch on before the show is over. And that is
Trump being a racist.
Is Trump racist? Now, I will say this, and I will acknowledge this because I acknowledged it during the campaign. I will acknowledge it now. There are things that Trump says that are fundamentally demonstrates that on some issues of race, he is completely and utterly tone deaf. Completely tone deaf. So I acknowledge that, but I believe that there is a difference between being tone deaf on the issue of race and the things you say and being racist. So I'm going to throw it out to you. I'm going to give you the opportunity to make the case that Trump is racist. Now, after you make your case, I'm going to ask that you not interrupt me while I address the points that you make. Are we fair? Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
That's
sir,
fair.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Dear America, Trump Trump's administration supports policies that literally are racist. He wants to, now, they may not, let me back up. They may not be racist, but racists love the policies of the Trump administration.
Real quick, that is a fair assessment. Continue.
Thank you. I like to see my brother. That's why I love him, because he will acknowledge the truth when it's staring him right in the face, for the most part, except about his Dallas Cowboys. Anyway, I digress. Trump supports policies.
Steelers 0-1. Just saying.
Okay.
Go for it.
Fair enough. So Trump supports policies that racists love. His treatment of Puerto Rico, while I acknowledge that there is a history of fiscal mismanagement in Puerto Rico, part of that is due to policies that have been in place that limit the ability of the Puerto Rican government to actually manage its own affairs and to be able to engage in free and open commerce. They are limited in some of the things that they can do. That said, his approach to hurricane aid and supporting the people of Puerto Rico is atrocious. Now let's move to just this last week. The fact that he has refused entry in from the people of the Bahamas, who we go down there, we vacation freely all the time. But when their people are running from starvation and famine and disease because there's no fresh water, because there's literally no livable way to survive down there, in those areas that are hardest hit, at the end of the day, he is unwilling to let those people in, citing that they're bad people. There are people that are in the Bahamas that should be there, so we're not going to let anyone in from the Bahamas. That is patently racist. He's also dealing with people who are fleeing violence and drugs and rape in South America and Central America, yet he will not let these people come to the United States to seek a better life. Most of these people are looking for a better life. And then when it comes to how he deals with people of color in the United States, his policies, going all the way back to the Central Park Five up to today, Trump has done nothing. You talk about his policies that are supposed to be supportive of all people. I'd be Craig, you'd be hard pressed to name one policy that Donald Trump has supported and passed that has actually done anything for people of color. All he's done is help his top 1%. So with that, I'll yield the floor to you, and you can say what you need to say.
Okay, so you've made your point. You're done.
I'm done.
Got nothing else to say.
Well, until you say whatever it is you're going to say, then I'll interrupt you.
Oh, then you'll interrupt me. See, that's how they work. Yeah. You know, rules don't mean nothing. Okay, no. So what I found interesting about everything that you said was that literally in every single case, race, in and of itself, there's not one policy you can point to that specifically said, okay, we're going to make sure that black people don't get this, don't get that, don't get this. We're going to make sure that Latinos do not lose their right to do this, to do that, to do this. Every single thing that you pointed to were policies that may or may not disproportionately affect people of color, but were not necessarily put in place because of people of color. They were not the targets of any of these policies. So that's one of the things I want you to understand. All right. So what you're saying is he's implemented a lot of policies that you disagree with. And because people of color disagree with those policies, therefore they are racist. And that's pretty much all you have to go on. That's pretty much it. Because, well, let's see. African American, black unemployment is at an all-time low. Black employment, which, by the way, is a different thing, right? Black employment is at an all-time high. The work that he's done in order to help increase funding for historically black colleges and universities. The number of people that he's appointed to positions where African Americans have never been appointed before. The number of people that he's actually, whose sentences he's commuted, right, or given pardons to. Like, oh my God, I all of a sudden now I forget the name, the boxer. Help me out, bro.
The boxer?
Oh. I'll have to put the name in the comments because all of a sudden now it's just completely skipped my mind. But there's those cases. There's the fact that he actually helped pass and actually has signed into law sentencing reform and criminal justice reform.
I'll give you that.
That has been once again,
that's good,
unprecedented, right? I'm just saying that, and by the way, goes all the way back to when Obama was president. Anytime anyone disagreed with a policy of Barack Obama, regardless of how legitimate their opposition was, and no matter how much it was steeped in actual policy differences, if you disagreed with him, you were called racist. And now, in this case, anytime Trump does a policy with which Democrats disagree with, they call him racist. And all I'm saying is that you can't just because you disagree with him doesn't mean you can get away with calling him a racist. I'm sorry. You can disagree with his policies. You can say that some of the things that he says are tone deaf. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with your disagreement with his policies or with the fact that some of the things he says are tone deaf and can be taken as racially insensitive. But what you cannot do is simply take the fact that you disagree with him and label it as racist, because the worst part about it is that it takes real acts of racism, real things that may be out there that are racist, and it diminishes them. And then I don't listen to anything you say when you accuse someone of racism. Anyway, now I yield the floor. You may now rebut.
Thank you, because I do
Are we now in the interruption stage where we can interrupt each other now?
Sure, okay. Sure. Okay, so now the gloves come off. So
come on.
So I just want to offer just a couple of points in retort.
Yeah, you're wrong.
So the policies in and of themselves do not say black people are prevented from this, Latino people are doing from that. But
because it's Donald Trump, it must be racist, because you have to look at his intent. And he's Donald Trump, so he must be racist.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Couple of points. One is, could you imagine the backlash that would have happened had Obama done sentencing reform or commuted the sentences of drug dealers? I could see the headlines right now. So my point is that there are some things that some presidents can do that others can't. That's just sort of baked into the DNA of the position. A conservative can do something that's liberal as sort of an opportunity to.
So Trump has done some good things.
Yes.
Okay.
I will say that. The sentencing reform. I don't think I don't think Obama could have done that, because if he did that, for instance, in his first term, Obama would not have gotten a second term. In my humble opinion, I don't think he would have, because I think the whole wacko liberal socialist whole thing would have. Wait,
did you just acknowledge that there's a wacko socialist liberal? You do realize that's the wing running for president, right?
That is an argument that the Republicans try to put on Democrats. But to get back to my point, there's some things that some presidents can do that others can't. But it's the intent of it's the effect of those policies which actually create the animus, that create the anger and the frustration. No, the Voting Rights Act decisions by conservative judges don't say that blacks can't do this, but the effect of those policies and those decisions makes it harder for people of color and poor people to vote, which benefits one party over another. The immigration policies don't say that.
Wait.
Hold on. The immigration policies,
have an ID makes it hard for one group of people to vote.
When you close down, when you couple that with closing down. When you couple that with closing down DMV offices, which in most states is where you get your ID, when you close down those offices and make it much more difficult for people to secure an ID, a qualifying ID, that's a problem.
A lot of states where they've done this,
when you allow them to purge, when you allow them to purge voter rolls, and go unchecked, and you remove people who are legally allowed to register.
Just because you're dead doesn't mean you should lose your right to vote. Now, the flip side of that is you might wind up voting Democrat.
Anyway, so it's the effect of those policies, Craig. And so while, no, Trump has not passed some of the old, covenants, codes, and restrictions saying, for instance, that you shall not sell this house to a person of African or Mexican descent. But the effect of those policies actually deter and limit the ability of people of color and poor people to exercise a constitutional fundamental right of exercising life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So what you're saying
is true.
What you're saying is, number one. So what you're saying is people of color they're able to get IDs to be able to buy alcohol, to be able to get credit cards, to be able to rent cars. But for some reason, they can't manage to get an ID to be able to vote. I think that shows me just how little the Democrats think of people of color. But if we're going to talk about the effect of policies, well, then why is it that I keep looking at Democratic policies and policies Democrats keep implementing that, quite frankly, just don't work? I'll give you an example. Gun buyback programs have never worked. Even gun rights activists, gun control activists, agree that they don't really do anything. They have absolutely no effect. I'm sorry. We're getting off into talking about policies, but once again, before we go, I think there's one thing that I want to make sure that I touch on, and this is vitally important. And I said this exact same thing when Barack Obama was president, and I say the exact same thing about Donald Trump. You don't have to agree with everything that they do. You don't have to agree with anything that they do. Right. But here's the deal. If you believe that President Trump can do no right or can do no wrong, then you are part of the problem. Because let's just be honest. Even my brothers acknowledge, even David's acknowledged, he's gotten a few things right. And I acknowledge, Obama got a few things right. So I think that when we start looking at everything in this us against them, and I think the us against them mentality that's developed in politics has made things worse. Mm-hmm. I think that the increased hyperbole and antagonism that is now in politics, some of that I put on Donald Trump because I believe in. I think a lot of people support him because he says things that that we want to say, but I'm like, dude, you're president. You don't get. There's just some things. Your words, my words don't really matter. You guys listen to me. Some of you will flip me off. Some of you will, yell at me on Facebook or whatever. Yeah. But my words don't have the impact that being president
Your words don't move markets.
Right. And when you're president, you have to, for lack of a better term, you have like a magic spell. Your words, your words make things happen, and so you have to be conscious about what they mean, right? But I will also say is that this is the same Donald Trump in terms of the antagonism and how he is when he was a Democrat. That's where he learned this. This is, if you look at Maxine Waters and how she talks, you look at Charlie Rangel and how he talks, you look at all of these Democrats who, by the way, are literally spewing hatred. If you want to say he's spewing hatred, they're spewing it right back at him. So the increased negative tenor or increased anger and frustration and hatred in the discussion is not just a Trump thing. It's just he's the most visible person on one side.
And he signed up for that because he's the president.
He did.
He's the president.
But what I'm saying to that though is you can't just let Democrats off the hook and say, well, I played no role in this. I've been, the hatred in politics and the anger in politics is all Trump's fault. No, it's not. It's not all Trump's fault. In many cases, he's just simply serving back to y'all what y'all served up to him.
Anyway. Look, we've exhausted this conversation because we are just going to agree to not agree, right?
And that's okay.
Agree to disagree.
And that is okay. But the key is, I think from this discussion, what I'm hoping you guys got out of this discussion was that there are some legitimate arguments both ways. And you don't have to like Donald Trump. You don't have to hate Donald Trump.
Right.
But there are logical reasons and there are some illogical reasons on both sides why people hate it and why people love it. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Okay. Hey, folks, do us a favor. Make sure this discussion doesn't end here, because guess what? There's a comment section. We'll be monitoring the comments, and we'll be going back and forth. So I want to encourage you guys, please make it a point to comment, number one. Make it a point. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.
Share it.
Share. Let your friends know about the DeLuz brothers, where we are keeping the fight in the family. Is that right, bro?
That's right. All right.
That is what we are about. So y'all take care. Love, peace, and hair grease.
All right. Peace.